Just going to wait for a minute. So we are live. Hey folks, hey everybody, thank you for joining us. Oh, Amelia is here. Oh. Okay, so hi Piali, thank you for joining us. Hi Amelia, thank you for joining. We are live on the internet, on YouTube, Twitch, and Twitter. So our faces are everywhere. We are superstars, you know. Thank you so much everybody for joining. Thank you viewers for watching. We have a couple of people looking at the live stream now on YouTube, and I'll be monitoring it. And if there's any question, I would also be sharing it here because I'm currently looking at the YouTube feed. So the order of the day, basically, we have the special co-chair panel for the Cloud Foundry Summit 2021 here. And we're basically going to talk about the Cloud Foundry Summit, the upcoming Cloud Foundry Summit, and, you know, talk about what to expect in, you know, the CFPs, the Cloud Foundry community, just everything relating to the CF Summit generally. And with me are a bunch of awesome people. I don't know how we're going to do this introduction. So I think I'll just call names. Like, I don't know, I'm just going to pick. If I call you first, I have nothing against you. Sorry about that. So the first person I'll probably go is Piali. Do you want to just tell us about you and what you do? Just say hi generally.
Yeah, of course. Thank you so much. Hi, I'm Piali. I'm currently a product manager at VMware. And before I was in Pivotal, and I was an engineer contributing to the CF API and CLI for 2 years before switching over to product management. And I'm still contributing to Cloud Foundry today. And I'm really excited to be here and looking forward to hearing some exciting ideas.
Awesome. So Piali, on what panel are you on in the CF Summit?
For CF Summit, I'm on the how-to track.
Oh, okay. Thank you. And the next person will be Sean Carter. So Sean, do you want to quickly say hi?
Hi. Yeah, I'm Deshaun Carter. I work for Redis Labs. I'm also on the how-to track. I also worked at Pivotal in VMware before coming here. I'm excited about this.
Awesome. So sort of like a VMware reunion. Okay. Hi, Chris. You want to give us a quick introduction? I mean, I think everybody knows Chris.
I work for the Cloud Foundry Foundation as a technical operations manager, and for Cloud Foundry Summits for quite a while now. I was running the hackathons back when we were doing hackathons and in-person events, but I schedule all of the project office hours, and I also organize all the hands-on labs. So talk about that a little bit later. But, hi, everybody.
Awesome. Amelia, do you want to go next?
Sure. Hi, I'm Amelia Downs. I worked for Pivotal, now with VMware. I've been a core contributor to Cloud Foundry for over 5 years now, and the last 3 have been in container networking and routing. So mostly I'm known as the person who answers your questions about GoRouter. And I think the part that I love about Summit the most is the open office hours where anyone can come and kind of ask any question and the conversations that arise around there. So yeah, I'm excited to be here.
Thank you, Amelia. Behan, do you want to go next? I don't know if I pronounced your name correctly, but yeah.
Hi. Yeah, it was correct. Thank you. So I'm Behan from SAP. I've been involved into a Bosch project for the past 5 years as a core contributor there. Recently, I changed my role, and I'm now focusing more on stakeholders, internal stakeholders at SAP. So we discussed the Cloud Foundry usage, tried to find possible improvements to the solutions implemented on Cloud Foundry, limitations with Cloud Foundry or issues. This is really a valuable input I get, and I'm trying to share this also with the Cloud Foundry community in the form of discussions or feature requests.
Thank you, Behan. Next up, Mark.
Hi, folks. Yeah, Mark Fines. I'm a field principal at VMware, formerly Pivotal. I've been working with Cloud Foundry, helping our customers get it working since 2014, and very excited to be here in the wild track.
Awesome, awesome. Last but not least, James.
Hi, I'm James Hunt. I have never worked at Pivotal or VMware, and I hope no one holds that against me. I'm the director of research and development here at Stark & Wayne. We've been a Cloud Foundry focused consulting firm for, well, since the beginning, all the way back, I think, to 2013, before anyone even knew what Bosch was. So super excited to be a co-chair track for the In the Wild. We're going to talk about stories from the field, people doing implementations with Cloud Foundry. It should be a lot of fun.
Awesome, awesome. And myself, my name is Shidrak Akintayo. I'm a developer advocate at the Cloud Foundry Foundation, and I'm sort of your host. And with me is also my colleague, Ram. Ram, do you want to tell us how awesome you are?
Boy, I was thinking you were going to forget me. You're in the company of some awesome folks, and I was just so. On behalf of the foundation and all of our viewers today, a very warm welcome to all our panelists. Thank you for taking the time out to be here. So, great introductions. I think it's safe to say that everybody on the call is way more experienced than me or Shedrak with Cloud Foundry. So, it's just amazing. So, just some general information before we dive into some of the specifics. The summit is on the 21st and 22nd of July 2021. It's fully virtual, just like last year. And more important than that, I think we need to highlight that the CFP closing date is on Friday, the 21st of May. So don't forget that if you're watching. The big reason we're doing this program is so that all of these awesome technologies together can inspire you to, type away at your keyboards and come up with some awesome submissions for us to review and present. So again, it's really great having all of you folks here, and all of these years of experience with Cloud Foundry culminating in shaping this event into what it is, in terms of the agenda, in terms of the CFPs, but the big picture obviously is just setting direction to what the summit is going to provide for all the attendees this year. So that way, really looking forward to all of the contributions that you can give. So in terms of some of the specific stuff itself, let's maybe walk around once again, one by one, I guess, in some random order that Shedrak will pick, and get some specific insights into what y'all are looking for in CFPs. So any topics that are of particular interest to you that you feel the community should represent. So maybe start with James this time.
Completely random. Yeah, I can go first. So this is not my first co-chairing of track at CF Summit or other conferences. And every time I do one of these, we get way more submissions than is humanly possible to sort through. I think 2 years ago, Mr. Voles and I had to go through like 200 and something talk submissions and pick 9. So it's it's a good, we get a good showing. What I look for most in the talk is putting together the track is to try and think of what the audience is going to respond to and what will make for a good experience, both for the speakers and for the participants. It's a lot harder in a virtual conference, of course, because you don't always get to see all the audience, but usually I look for a variety of engaging and illustrative CFPs. So I'm the one, I usually want to find a couple of things that are just weird and out there just to see, what happens. So if you've got a crazy idea and you're like, oh, they'll never, ever, ever accept this proposal, submit it. Go right now. We'll pause the live stream. Go submit the weird talk, because those are some of the best talks that the CFP chairs love to read. We love to watch them just to see, what happens, and the audience members really identify.
Awesome. Thank you,
Amelia
James.
was nodding the hardest, so maybe you can go next.
Who was nodding the hardest?
Amelia.
It's not a contest, but Amelia.
Oh, I thought it might have been you, Deshaun. Oh, yes, I love the out there talks. I think my favorite talks that I see, so I'm in the behind the curtain track, usually the core contributors talking. Project updates, always great, because especially now that we're all working remotely, I'm not in an office anymore. I don't have casual interactions with the other teams as much, so I really don't know what's going on outside of my little bubble, and so those are always good. But I love the stories about the weird bugs that went wrong and how you found them and how you fixed them. I think Toby from the UK government did one maybe last year that I loved. And he was talking about how like a particular image caused you, like on a web page, caused UAA to have some problem. Anyway, they're out there and they're just so interesting to get in, like a fun way to get into the details of how everything works rather than just like, here's an architecture diagram. So I love that.
Cool.
Awesome.
Sean, thoughts?
Yeah, I will look for energy. When trying to put together the track, I want to cover as many bases as I can. Right, there's this kind of path that everybody has from dev to production, that developer experience. I want to understand how. Like, what did you do for your organization, and how did you do it? So I'm gonna try to virtually pave that path with the submissions that we get, so we can kind of cover some bases so that if somebody was new to the Cloud Foundry environment, that ecosystem, they have some idea of what it looks like from start to finish.
Nice. Chris, do you want to give us your insights?
Sure. Well, I'll speak somewhat tangentially here, since I'm not actually co-chairing a track. Well, there are a few, some programming that is extra CFP. So right now I'm putting together some hands-on labs, which will be technical walkthroughs. So if people are a little bit tired of just passively listening, they can actually get their hands dirty with some code. We've done this a bunch of times. Stark and Wayne is kind enough to help us out with the infrastructure, which is built on GCP, and Google is kind enough to donate us some GCP credits. So thanks to both those organizations. As of right now, I believe it looks like we'll run the creatively named Try Cloud Foundry hands-on lab, as we always do, and probably either Ram or Shedrack will share that.
What are we going to do in that one, Chris?
And I believe there'll be a Paketo Build Packs one. That should be a new one. And a one for CF for Kates. And then something that Stark and Wayne will hook up GBD. So looking forward to all those. Those should be a lot of fun. And then the other thing that I'll do, once we have the summit schedule set up, then I'll reach out to various project leads on the different Cloud Foundry project teams and schedule office hours, which are just a drop in time that anyone can pop into and be on a call with the project leads for these, or project leads and or committers for the various core projects. And then you have an opportunity to ask direct questions in real time to the folks that run those. So those can be really great as well. So looking forward to all these, and certainly seeing what the 3 tracks hook up for us. Thanks.
Awesome. Thank you, Chris. Next would be Behan.
Yeah, I'm in the track behind the curtain with Amelia. So I can add to what she already said. Also, interesting discussion suggestions around the future development of Cloud Foundry towards Kubernetes. I think will be interesting for the community, or any interesting feature requests which you want to discuss or trigger discussion for. It's always also cool. Or any issues you faced on large deployments, for example. At SAP, we have something in that direction, many issues in that direction. If others are also facing something towards this, I think could be also interesting. But yeah.
Awesome. Thank you. Who has not gone yet? Piali. Okay, Mark. Okay, Mark. Then Piali. Okay.
What James said. No, just I like to see eccentricity. I like to see capabilities committed in the last few years being used. Surgical routing. Who's done anything with that? I love when it's one of those examples in your story of how you're doing something and someone says to you, God, I didn't know you could do that. And how did you figure out what you were, that particular trick? I think that it could be, of course, a technical in the weeds capability that you've surfaced and used in some useful way. It could be an adjacency to Kate's. There's a whole bunch of places you can go with this, but I think something, I forget how you phrased it, James, but off the beaten track, eccentric, eye-grabbing as to, oh, okay. And most of us would know you've done something a little bit, unique because you've never found a write-up on it anywhere else, and you kind of figured that out to begin with.
We're going to take that into the wild metaphor as far as we can.
Exactly.
You got it.
Yeah. Piali, let's hear what you got.
Yeah, so echoing off of what Sean said, I think that diversity in topics as well as in levels of accessibility is really important. So not just how-tos for people who have been in Cloud Foundry and have been contributors and users for a long time, but also for new people. Because I remember when I was new, I really appreciated the how to get started with X tracks. And not just showing a demo or not just showing something, but also really explaining why is something important for people to know. I think that why is the most important thing that I'll be looking for personally when I look through the proposals. And so really pay attention to that, and I'm looking forward to seeing some good ideas.
Awesome. Thank you, Piali. Ram, back to you.
Do I answer my own question or do I?
No, you don't.
The new one. Okay. So one of the things that I wanted to get some feedback on was there's different projects that the foundation maintains, and a lot of these get presented at the summit. Just when you were answering the previous question, a lot of you mentioned CF itself, Paketo, and then there's so many others. So anything in particular that you look forward to, any projects, I mean, that you particularly look forward to being presented in your track this year? Just feel free to unmute yourself and answer, no problem.
I won't necessarily be in my track yet, but I'm interested in the Cloud Native Build Pack shim and how we're going to get to convergence with CMBs outside Cloud Foundry from a runtime perspective. So that'll be interesting just to see how that's coming along.
Thanks.
Well, my favorite domain is, of course, networking. And so I know that there's some engineers who have been working hard on adding HTTP2 to the system. And it's provided a lot of really interesting technical challenges that they've been overcoming. And so I'm really excited to hear them speak on that.
Awesome.
If I can convince them to submit a CFP Come on.
You should. Who's next? Who wants to go next? Or should I call names? I'm happy to call names. Okay, James. Let's see.
Sure. I mean, to echo Mark's sentiments, right, the end of the wild track really is about people using Cloud Foundry in any way in the real world, doing large scale deployments, solving actual real world problems. Like, we're not talking, I don't want to see a demo of Spring Music deployed 3,000 times, although I do believe that is the base demo for Cloud Foundry. I want to see a whole bunch of things, but mostly what I want to see from a variety standpoint is big and small. A lot of years we get the like, oh, I have a massive 6,000 Diego cell cluster and I can deploy 30 million app instances. I want to see the company that's a startup and how are they using Cloud Foundry and what kinds of problems are they having and what are they solving? Yeah. How are they solving those problems? Because I think Cloud Foundry can work on the smaller end of the spectrum. In my day job at Stark & Wayne, we help a lot of smallish enterprises. I mean, they're still enterprises, but the smaller end of the spectrum with, you know, only a handful of apps that still that get value out of this. I'd like to see that out in public, where we can talk about it, not under NDA and not in, you know, client relationships and all that, but just what did you do and how good was it? Was the CF push story helpful to small shops as it is to large shops?
Yeah, I think I totally agree with James. You know, being a developer advocate at the CF at the Cloud Foundry Foundation, it's sort of one of our, let's say, job to make sure that we get like small teams to share stories from small teams, like also advocate for them to make sure that they have, you know, every single thing they need to get started with CF and answer certain questions. So I totally feel what James just said now. Thank you, James, for that. Who else has anything to say? Sean, do you have something you want to share?
I have all the feelings, right? This is already, I'm excited about what I'm hearing and excited to see some of these submissions. But that story, you know, beginning to end, it, you know, having accessibility for different levels of maturity, I definitely care about. Like even like the simple problems, you know, one that's fairly recent with me is logging. Like how are people handling logging? How long are you keeping them around? How are you handling loss and scale? Just there's so many topics to cover, and everybody's got a story. Everybody has a story that's been interesting and exciting over the past 9 to 12 months. You know, new technologies being released. How did you leverage that?
Awesome, exactly. Anybody else?
I think I'm also particularly interested in the services story personally, because I think that Cloud Foundry in general is like really focused on apps. Typically, like I've seen a lot of talks about like focusing on networking security, mostly around apps, but I really want to understand more of the story, like the full story between apps and services. How are they connected? How do you, like from day one, how do you even make a service instance, for example? How do you even connect it to your app? How do you monitor that? What's the highly availability story around that? How do you accomplish that? So I think that story would be really amazing to share, especially because there have been a lot of learnings recently around that. So I'm really interested in seeing some proposals in that area.
I'll just just carrying on from something Deshaun said in the logging. So in my, you know, this week I found something new in Cloud Foundry. Last year I discovered the Rainer script support. Really interesting. You know, they can create filtered log streams out of Cloud Foundry, and I thought, wow, what could we do with that? So if anyone's done anything interesting there, that's one I'd be fascinated by because it ties into a whole security story that's very interesting.
Yeah. Thank you, Mark. Ram?
Do folks have any very memorable talks from previous summits? Something that you really enjoyed, and that might illustrate how to think about, you know, talks for the future. Just something that you've heard in the past and you've really enjoyed.
I think Piali should have some, because she said, you know, the whole getting started thing was easy for her because of some of the talks. So Piali, do you have any memorable talk that you think you want to talk about?
Yeah. Actually, the very first talk that I've ever seen, and this was before I even joined Pivotal. This was when I was still searching for something to join. And one of the reasons why I applied to Pivotal in the first place and was interested in Cloud Foundry was because I saw a CF Summit talk by Eric Mom about Diego. And this was like a few years ago, maybe like 3 or 4 years ago, I don't remember. But I just remember what struck me the most was that Diego, Bosch, like those are pretty complicated topics for someone who's never even seen Cloud Foundry before or is completely new to the field. And I really appreciated the way that Eric broke such a complex topic and workflow down into something that's so understandable, even for a complete new beginner person like me. And at the same time, the content itself was still pretty heavy and pretty complicated, but I didn't walk into it or walk out of it feeling like, oh, what did I just learn? I felt like, oh, wow, I think I did gain something from this. I think I do understand the gist of this. And it really interested me in learning more. So I think that those types of talks are the most impactful. Like, even if you're talking about something that's super highly technical, how do you make that accessible to someone who's new? Or how do you make that accessible to somebody who's exploring the area and present it in such a way to make them want to learn more?
Awesome. Thank you. Piali, shout out to Eric for that talk. Hey, Sean, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I'll just add that whole idea of doesn't matter the kind of maturity of the conversation, but if you can be like Eric and you can bring people into the conversation, into a depth conversation and make yourself understood, that's huge, right? So if we can get from your submission, if we can see that you understand it and that you're presenting in a way that can be easily consumed by all levels of maturity in the audience, that'll be a big plus.
Awesome. Now I want to be like Eric. I don't know if Eric is watching this, but Eric, if you're watching this, Eric, if you're watching this, you take Menses, I will be in your Slack. Okay. Who else has a talk experience they want to share? James, do you have any?
I have two. I was actually just frantically Googling to figure out which one of the gents at Demand Bridge did this talk, but we had one of our customers at Stark Wayne is Demand Bridge. They're a smallish marketing firm. They do all of their stuff is built and deployed on top of Cloud Foundry. And they're an example of what I was talking about, that lower end spectrum. We're not talking 2,000 developers. We're talking like 3. And they are able to get so much out of it. And they talk about what Cloud Foundry meant to them as a small operator and kind of the foibles that they had getting started, the cost thing, and a bunch of those. And that to me, if I could get more talks like that, I would be happy with the schedule for CF Summit 2021. And on the opposite end of the spectrum, a good friend of mine, Matt Sarabian from Zipcar, gave a talk, I want to say 3 years ago, about secure introduction with Vault inside of Cloud Foundry applications, where he goes through this complete zero trust model for secrets introduction for things like databases from applications. And it was incredibly dense material that he just so lithely presented that a whole bunch of people got really excited about security. And for people to get really excited about security takes us, that's impressive. I love when people get excited, not just about the thing they saw, but about the doors that it opens in their own journeys and what they're doing with the technology.
Awesome. Anybody else before we move on to the next thing? Chris. Okay, Behan. Yeah.
I always enjoyed the talks given by Dr. Jules from IBM. They are really entertaining, and also the content is presented very well so that you can understand also really complex topics around Gardner or Diego in a funny way. This is something which is really nice to see in a conference.
Awesome.
These are very interesting takeaways for those watching and those interested in thinking through their CFP. So go back, watch some of the old talks. Very interesting honorable mentions here by a lot of folks. but also remember, you might be inspiring other PLEs out there to join CF. So yeah, just putting it out there. Anyone else have any other talks they want to mention before we move on? Going once, going twice. Okay. I'm going to ask something rather controversial. CF Summit is predominantly targeted towards engineers and that, engineering persona. But how technical do you think a CFP submission should be? Is there scope for, tangential, non-technical discussions? Is there scope for something like, how business outcomes would be affected by CF? How, other non-web application, associated services, non-12 factor. Is there a 13th factor? Is my question really. Um, eh, floor's open for anybody who has an opinion.
Ram, are you asking us to give away the secret code of the co-chairs on how we select talks?
Let's just say something like that, but not like that.
If there is one,
Because
you can make it as cryptic as you can.
Yeah, I can't actually discuss most of it, but what I can tell you is when I do my talk selection, I usually figure out how many slots there are, because you do have to fit into the schedule. And then I like to divide that number into subtract 1 divided by 3. And the one that I subtract, that's my wild card. And I'm looking for just the weird, like, what are people going to remember, even if it wasn't, 100% on, and it can be technical, it can be business, it can be whatever. And then the other 3 silos, bins, buckets, whatever you want to call them, one of them is for hard tech stuff. One of them is for business process, like improving developer productivity or reducing infrastructure spend, those kind of, now we call that fintech or FinOps. That we were doing FinOps years ago at CF Summit. You heard it here first. And then the third one I reserve for like the social, I don't want to call them soft skills, because I think that's a disservice to how difficult it is to talk about the non-technical, non-computer binary stuff. But like, how do you as a developer feel using Cloud Foundry? How has it changed the way you write code? How has it affected architecture? Those kinds of talks make really good talks. And I have a hard time when I try and shop CFPs around to people, like when I'm trying to sell people on submitting CFPs. Everyone's like, oh, I did this one thing and that might be interesting. I could do a demo of that. It's like, yeah, but remember when you used to have, you had 2 people on your team and you could only push like 3 apps a day, and now you've got 4 people and you're pushing 100. Like, that's big. Let's talk about that. That's kind of how I don't normally ever hit those numbers exactly, but that's kind of the mix up that I like to see, because it gives you some variety, and it's not just wall-to-wall brain drain tech talks.
Mm-hmm.
I think one thing I can share about like what I'm looking for the how-to track specifically is, and maybe this is the product manager side of me talking, but like, even if it's a very technical or engineering heavy demo that you're trying to do, or a how-to that you're trying to discuss, I think keeping the end user in mind, and like, who is this how-to for? Who's actually going to be doing this in the real world? What is the impact of this workflow? I think that is so important to communicate, even if the room is full of developers. I think it's still important to communicate that, because I think that's something that everyone can connect to, and it makes that so much more meaningful to share. So end users, always keep them in mind.
One of my favorites ever was actually at a spring conference, but it was about Cloud Foundry, and it was Liberty Mutual talking about getting to production in 10 minutes in a 100-year-old insurance company. And almost all of the conversation of the talk track was about outward facing and how leveraging Cloud Foundry and what it meant for them to be able to attest and be able to get past all those gates. And he basically described, so much of his universe outward facing from the Cloud Foundry view, as opposed to inward facing and what he was doing to set it up. And it was very high level. It was actually a really, really interesting talk. So And it doesn't have to be some company that size. But the outcome, when they get that right and the lightning hits, they're just really, really cool to see.
Whether it's a 3-person company or a 3,000 engineer company, whether it's technical or not, there's always going to be some level of emotion. Like when I'm writing a presentation or an abstract, what's the emotion? What's the thing that's going to connect? As Mark just started talking, I think about all of those sessions that I watched, and it touched me in my heart. Right, being a fan of the product and seeing it, now I get goosebumps thinking about all the ways that this ecosystem has allowed us to do more exciting things faster, more secure, all of those emotions that sometimes we kind of take for granted. Sometimes it's nice to restate the obvious, right? A lot of people don't understand how easy a CF push can be, right? We've kind of taken, well, I know I've taken it for granted, the level of ease, that experience that I have, and the excitement about delivering to production to our customers and getting that feedback, shorten that feedback loop, all those things that sometimes we take for granted. Sometimes they can be really exciting if you're showing it to somebody that's never seen it before.
I definitely agree with you, Sean. Definitely. Anybody else that want to go? Okay. Going one. Okay, Ram.
Yeah, I want to bring up something again slightly more tangential, and I'm going to go with Behan because he's been the quietest one so far in comparison. So because this event is virtual, and that can be a challenge for like a lot of folks. Any thoughts you want to share about what can be particularly difficult, especially if you're a first-time presenter at a virtual event as opposed to it being a physical event? And the reason I want to bring this up is for the foreseeable future, a lot of the events, for very good reason, seem to want to continue on this virtual mode. So although I'm really hoping that everything goes back to the way it was. I don't want to use the N word, normal word, but I'm really hoping that we can go back to doing the events in person. But virtual events can be challenging, and so I just wanted to get some folks' thoughts on that.
What I personally think is more difficult is to do the recording for the event. Usually it's taking much more time than you think it will take. And you always can improve it and do a new one. And at some point, you have to give up and say, this is it.
This is the one, yeah.
Yeah, this is the one, and be happy with you. Yeah, this was my challenge when I did it for the first time for a virtual conference to get the recording done in the times what I actually planned for it. It was a challenge.
Awesome. Yeah, I totally agree with Behan. I mean, I've done a lot of talks within the start of the pandemic and now. And one thing I've always had issues with is, recording the talk. You let me say you find out various errors. For example, you did not turn on your audio and you record about 30 minutes of your talk. So there's always that. There's also, making certain mistakes, missing the points and going back to do it. So the best way to actually record videos, is to have a script. So draw a map. Okay, this is where I want to start from. This is where I want to get to, and this is how I'm going to do it. So having a visual representation of your entire talk is going to be very easy for you to not make mistakes and have a very, very, at least almost perfect talk. So having a script for your talk is actually very important and very useful when you are recording a virtual talk. So that's sort of like what I would advise personally. If you submit a talk and you accept it and you want to record the talk, you should definitely keep that in mind, unless you're like an expert or a pro that has been doing this for a while. So that's one way that I feel like you can actually make your talks better. So is anybody else that is willing to answer the same question that Behan and myself has answered, from your experience? I feel like James is going to have a lot of like experience with this. I feel like
I will say that the virtual event thing has been a blessing and a curse. The blessing being that I don't have to pack a suitcase to go to a conference. The curse being that as a veteran presenter at conferences, making the switch to virtual. If you haven't done that already and you have spoken at conferences in the past, it's a very different feel. For starters, you don't have an audience to interact with. You can't make eye contact with people in the audience to see, are they getting this? Am I off in the weeds, not explaining myself? Do I need to slow down, speed up? Is everyone asleep? The only person you have to look at is yourself. And that's also really weird. And I do a lot of live events now, and I've gotten used to it. But that's one of the biggest weirdnesses about presenting. And it's something you can, it's weird at first. You'll get into the groove. And it goes away. But I see Deshaun is shaking his head vigorously.
I'm thinking of all these things, all this knowledge that we're kind of sharing out to the world. And yeah, I'm agreeing. I'm nodding. I'm kind of awkward. And I like this. I like this virtual approach. I like that I can go in and edit when I'm done. I missed it on that take. Let me go back and just say that one little bit that I missed, and flash bang, and now it's back in my presentation. So yeah, there's benefits, right? And depending on your skill level and your comfort level, yeah, you got a little bit of flexibility. I like to grab somebody and bring them in the room when I'm recording, or have somebody watch on the phone while I'm going. Like, hey, did that feel right? Because I do. I want to share the emotion. I want to be able to share the goosebumps moments. I want to be able to get that out. It's going to be hard to see that in the call for papers and the submissions. So I'm going to be looking. I'm going to try to feel that emotion. But yeah, there's lots of these tips, and I hope that what we're providing here is that entry. It's okay if this is your first time presenting at a conference, right? Don't be afraid to present, and you have a little bit of leeway, you have a little bit of flexibility on this one. I want to hear from that community. So if you're maybe a computer science student that just got done taking your AP tests, and you have been introduced to Cloud Foundry, and you want to understand, share what you've learned so far. That would be awesome.
Awesome. So one more question from my end. So what advice do you all have for like first-time speakers? I know like we're encouraging like more people to submit, and of course the first timers. I mean, a lot of people are actually looking into sharing their knowledge, and some of them back out because of the fact that they are intimidated by maybe the lineup, seeing like people with a lot of experience in speaking, and they don't just feel confident enough or feel like their talk is going to, be accepted in the CF Summit. So what advice do you folks have for first time submitting their first talk to the CF Summit?
I can speak to this a little bit. The first talk that I gave was actually my first year when I joined Pivotal. And that was really nerve-wracking for me in a lot of ways, because I've, first of all, never given a talk in a conference in general before. And I also just joined Pivotal at that point. And I'm like, do I even know enough about Cloud Foundry to be giving a talk? I don't know. But I think like I was so grateful because my coworkers really encouraged me to submit the proposal, because they were like, if you don't submit the proposal, then you don't have a chance to even get it accepted in the first place. So it's better than the 0% chance. And I think that really stuck with me, because you don't know until you try. And I'm really grateful that I did, because even though I was extremely nervous before going up to the actual conference, I think a lot of my nerves went away when I started interacting with the audience and I started seeing all the faces and being like, wait, these people are actually interested in what I'm talking about. That's amazing. And I think that's really a real thing that happens even in a virtual conference, because just remember that if your talk does get accepted, there's a reason why it got accepted. And it's because we strongly believe that it's going to be valuable and impactful to the community, and be a lot of people who are really interested in what you have to say. So definitely submit an idea. Even if you're new, definitely submit the proposal, because it's a really, really great way to share your ideas. And you have to get started at some point. So good luck.
Yeah. Thank you so much for that, PRD. I definitely agree with you, because that was how it basically was when I first gave my first talk for the first time. It was really, I was shaking when I clicked on confirm, like submit. I was literally shaking. I was like, these people are really going to know how much of a fraud I am when this talk has been accepted. So I was shaking, but at the end of the day, when I actually got to the venue to give the talk, seeing like a bunch of people like basically putting all your attention on me really, really made me comfortable. I'm like, okay, so these people really want to listen to what I have to say. I mean, that alone was like really, really comforting. And I think it was successful. That my first talk was really, really successful. So I mean, you can never know until you do it, like Piali said. So just click on submit, click on finish your talk, click on it, and submit. What's the worst that could happen? So who else has like anything to share on this particular question I asked?
I just throw out, you're there to tell a story. Think of it as storytelling. Well, we say you rehearse and write your script. Don't put your script on your slides. Keep them, go to demo, keep your slides as low in word count as you can, because it's not a handout. It's really just a few markers to keep you on a track. You're there just to have a kind of a one-person conversation with the audience and just tell them what you went through. And it's a journey story. The best ones always turn into, I started here, I ended there, and here's what we managed to discover along the way. But it's a standard presentation, tricks of the trade. Completely agree. There's no substitute for getting out there. I personally hate pre-recording, because I find that I need that feedback, and it kills me. And I do a whole bunch of takes, and I hate every one of them when I listen to myself talk. It just kills me stone dead. So don't feel bad if that happens to you. And it's not to say you must go live, but it sounds almost cliche, but if you can just be yourself, having a chat about it, that's the best flavor, the most natural feeling I think that comes out.
Awesome.
The piece of advice I always give new speakers, either before they've decided, yeah, I'm actually going to try and submit to the CFP, or after, when they've gotten the acceptance and now they're all nerves and butterflies, the audience isn't required to go to the conference, right? It's a 3-track conference. So if you've got a ticket, you have 2 other options to go to. They are in your room because they want to hear you speak. And more importantly, they want to have a good time. Most people, like 99.9% of people, don't go to talks to heckle the speaker, even though that's the 100% fear even seasoned speakers have. So if you're thinking about it, you're like, I think I could talk to this topic, or I think I have an interesting story to tell, just keep in mind the audience also wants to have a good time. So they're going to cut you some slack, and most of the things that you're going to worry about and that you're going to get off stage or close out the live stream and go, oh, I said this wrong and I said that wrong. Nobody's going to notice, because everybody was there to have a good time.
Exactly. Thank you, James. Anybody else? Okay, Ram.
So I'm going to spend the next few minutes in testing the memory of our panelists. Now that it's been established that you folks have been in the community for a while, how many CF Summit venues can you remember going back all of those years? And Chris is going to help me check if all the answers are right, because I know for a fact that he remembers every single one of them going back to the first one.
I missed a couple.
Okay.
There was a couple before I joined, but yeah.
Okay. So 2020.
Wait, I'm not supposed
remote.
to
I got this one. 2020 was both remote.
Yes. 2019.
Philadelphia and The Hague.
Philly.
18.
Boston and Basel.
17.
Oh no, was 17 Boston? Oh, now I'm not sure.
I don't know any, so you're doing well.
It was also Basel. We did Basel 2 years in a row, which was great. And before Boston, was it Santa Clara?
No, I think we did Santa Clara in 2016.
Was Santa Clara.
Unless we did it 2 years in a row.
We do two because we had the Mall of Americas 1 year, and then they moved the venue. I think we did do Santa Clara twice.
Nice. I need to go and read up
when
on
it was one room with like a folding table with one coffee pot on it. Like 7 people showed up. That was 2014.
So it was Santa Clara. It wasn't San Francisco. Okay. Memories are blurred going that far back.
Yeah, I remember I took the train down from San Francisco to Santa Clara. And I remember first hearing it as Santa Barbara, and I was like, this is going to be great. And then I heard Santa Clara, and I was like, oh, okay, that'll be fine too.
Okay.
When was the first one? Was it 2014?
I think so. That's a long time ago.
Yep.
I know the first European one was in Berlin, but that was before I joined. The first one I went to was Frankfurt, which was great. But I'd only been with the foundation for about a month then. I had a great time.
Interesting. I did not know how to write code then. So thank you. Oh, thank you, everybody.
Right.
Yeah?
How many apps have gone to production since 2014? What would be exciting? I want to see that that submission from somebody that was running Cloud Foundry in 2014 and what they have learned since then. That
would be really interesting.
Or someone that's just been upgrading. They haven't had to migrate. They've been keeping one going for a long time. That's pretty rare.
Yeah. Yeah.
Awesome. Just some general points to note for those who are watching. So last date for the CFP submission is the 21st of May. That is Friday that's coming. Usually the foundation has been kind enough to do an extension. We are not going to be doing an extension this year. And if you have an open submission, but you don't close it on time, it doesn't get considered. So please remember to not just complete your submission, but also go and actually submit it. There are some scholarships that we have in place for diversity and inclusion. Please get in touch with the foundation at events@cloudfoundry.org if you have any questions about that. Yeah, that's all. We had amazing points from everyone and some really good knowledge sharing. I definitely picked up like a ton of interesting stuff from this. So thank you very much once again for taking the time for sharing your experiences and giving up the secret sauce. So any closing thoughts before we say goodbye?
Yeah, I was going to say what the foundation was doing for, for diversity and inclusion, but I think you already said that we're giving, making sure that everybody is represented at the event, irrespective of race, gender, etc. We are always here. We are always one family. The community is one family. Everybody's here to share knowledge and have a good time. So please feel free, if you need a scholarship, please feel free to send an email to the event email that Ram has mentioned, and would definitely get back to you. So I definitely had fun doing this. This is really, really interesting, sharing our experiences, hearing from the co-chairs and your vast years of experience, with the CF Summit. It was really, really eye-opening for myself that have been with the community for like a year, and, learning how the whole CFP things work, how the CF Summit works generally, and also feeling the the quiz that Ram gave. I would try better next time. Definitely, I would do that better next time. So yeah, that's pretty much it.
That's what you say every time, but okay.
Ram, please, I will always do it. So yeah, definitely we get better next time. And yeah, I would definitely not want to keep you ahead of the time. You know, a lot of us are just starting our day. Ram has to, go to bed. And yeah, so thank you so much, everybody, for coming. This is really, the foundation really appreciates this, and the community in general appreciates like seeing everybody here to talk about it, even though the timing was really short. So yeah, that's pretty much everything for today. Looking forward to a very great event, and personally, I'm looking forward to seeing the talk lineup, because I feel like with everything I've heard today, it's going to be really good. And yeah, so thank you so much, everybody, for coming and for doing this. Looking forward to the CF Summit 2021, and yeah, bye everybody.